Hello everyone, welcome back to the next session of the metallurgy. In the last session, we have dealt with how to reduce a metal oxide to a metal through various processes. We have done with smelting, we have done with reduction by carbon, we have done with reduction by hydrogen, and we have also done the reduction by a metal followed by the auto reduction. Yes, in those reduction processes, thermodynamics plays a vital role in selecting a proper reducing agent there. So, what actually the thermodynamics says? Thermodynamics explains the probable reducing agent with the help of an Elingham diagram. Elingham is a name of a scientist who introduced a diagram in such a way that in order to reduce a metal oxide to a metal, what sort of a reducing agent that one must choose. So, those contents we are going to look into this session. If you are unaware of the content that was dealt in the last session, just go back to the same part 3 of the same metallurgy and come to this session. And in the content for the last session which was dealt will be given as a link in the description below. So, if you are not aware of it, go there and then come back here. Right. So, today's content, we are going to deal with metallurgy in which the thermodynamic principles. When I say thermodynamic principle, see, metallurgy deals with the extraction of a metal from its ore. Okay. Somehow, from the previous methods that we have witnessed, we are able to arrive to a metal oxide. From the metal oxide, if I need to arrive to a metal, I must choose a probable, correct, possible reducing agent. And those reducing agents can never be common for all the reduction processes, which means the reduction of a metal oxide to a metal can be done with the help of different reducing agent. Right. If I am going to reduce a metal oxide like it is given as MxOY. If I am going to reduce this metal oxide to a metal M, I can use different reducing agent like carbon as well as carbon monoxide. If I use carbon as a reducing agent, there is a 2 chances for the formation of a product from the carbon, which means carbon can form carbon dioxide, carbon can form carbon monoxide. So, I can use the carbon which form carbon dioxide, I can use the carbon which form carbon monoxide. Similarly, I can also use carbon monoxide which forms carbon dioxide. You will get clear. See, I am going to reduce a metal oxide which is written as 2 by Y MxOY, which is in the solid state. If this metal oxide undergone a process called reduction, oxygen will be completely removed from it, which means I can write in terms of 2x by y m and O2 will be removed from it. Right, because if y goes up, it is 2y by y will get cancelled and I can write it as O2. Just x goes up, it is 2x by y m. Okay. In order for this metal oxide to undergo a reduction, I can use carbon that forms carbon dioxide. I can use carbon that forms carbon monoxide. There is one more chances that I can use carbon monoxide also. I can use carbon monoxide that forms carbon dioxide. So, in such a way, among these 3 reducing agents, which is the proper reducing agent that I must choose depends on the thermodynamic concept. Okay. What does thermodynamics says? Okay, I will just name it as 1, I will just name it as 2, I will just name it as 3, I will just name it as 4. Okay, in order to reduce 1, I can use 2 or else I can use 3 or else I can use 4. But among these 3, 1 if I reduce 1 with the help of 2, I need to compare with 1 and 3, I need to compare with 1 and 4. Among those comparison, which is the most perfect reducing agent has to be selected, and then the reduction has to be done. Right. See, among these 3 coupled reactions, when I say coupled reaction, it is 1 plus 2 it can be done, or else I can use 1 plus 3 I can do, or else I can use 1 plus 4. In this combination, I can use the reducing agent in order to occur the reduction. Okay. The most probable reducing agent is selected in such a way that the free energy change, or else del G, the Gibbs free energy for that reaction should be more negative. Generally, for all the coupled, if you get all the coupled reaction as negative, among those things for which you are getting more negative, that coupled reaction should be selected. And that in that coupled reaction, which atom is used as a reducing agent? Either carbon that forms carbon monoxide, either carbon that forms carbon dioxide, either carbon monoxide that forms carbon dioxide. You can use anyway. But the coupled reaction, the Gibbs free energy change for the coupled reaction should be more negative. That is what it has been stated.
Hi, நான் தமிழ் பிரகாஷ். வித்யாலட்சுமி ஸ்கூல்ல 12th ஸ்டாண்டர்ட் படிக்கிறேன். நாங்கள் 12th என்டர் ஆன டைமில் கொரோனா வந்ததுனால ஃபுல் பேண்டமிக், செம லாக்டவுனு, ஸ்கூல் எதுவுமே ஓப்பன் பண்ண முடியாமல் போச்சு. அதுவும் இது ஒரு லைஃப் டிசைடிங் பாயிண்ட் அப்படிங்கிறனால எங்கள் கரியரே ஒரு கொஷின் மார்க்காக இருந்தது. பட் அந்த டைம்லையும் எங்கள் வித்யாலட்சுமி ஸ்கூல் ஆன்லைன் கிளாஸஸ்லாம் கண்டக்ட் பண்ணி எங்களை ஒரு கரெக்டான பாத்தில் கொண்டு போனாங்க. இப்போது எங்கள் கரியரை பற்றின எந்த டவுட்டும் இல்லை, ரொம்ப கான்ஃபிடென்ட்டாக இருக்கும். அதுவும் இல்லாமல் சிபிஎஸ்சி எங்கள் எக்ஸாம்ஸ் வந்து போஸ்ட்போன் பண்ணனால இன்னும் நிறைய டைம் கிடச்சிருக்கு. ஸோ தட் எங்கள் ஸ்கூல் கண்டிப்பாக எங்களோட கரியர் வந்து ஒரு டாப் லெவலில் கொண்டு போயிடுவாங்க அப்படின்னு எங்களுக்கு நல்லாவே கான்ஃபிடென்ட்டாக இருக்கும். இது எல்லாத்துக்குமே வித்யாலட்சுமி ஸ்கூலுக்கு ரொம்ப ரொம்ப நன்றி.
Generally, you will be able to find negative for 3 combinations also. But among those 3 combinations, which is more negative, that is the best reducing agent. So, in such a way, you have to select in a proper manner. Right. So, from now, we are very clear that in order to reduce a metal oxide, there might be different reducing agent. But the best reducing agent is selected in such a way that for the coupled reaction, for which the Gibbs free energy change should be negative, which is more negative. For which is more negative, that can be selected as a proper and the best reducing agent here. So, that is what thermodynamic principle actually stays here, said here. Right. The Gibbs free energy change will be given by the expression as del G is equal to del H minus T del S. Del G is equals to del H minus T del S. When I say del G, it is Gibbs free energy. Right. When I say del H, it is enthalpy, which talks about the heat content. Right. When I say T, it is temperature. When I say S, it is entropy, which talks about the randomness of a molecule and a substance. If it is del H, it is change in Gibbs free energy. If it is del G, it is change in Gibbs free energy. If it is del H, it is change in enthalpy. If it is del S, it is change in entropy here. Right. See, all this expression, all these equations have been arrived, okay, without considering the reaction is in equilibrium. If I consider that reaction in an equilibrium, for which the Gibbs free energy change will be calculated not from the expression that I have written above, the expression that I am going to write now. Right. Considering the reaction is in equilibrium, for which the Gibbs free energy change or the standard Gibbs free energy change is written as minus RT ln Kp. Kp talks about equilibrium constant of a gas, which is expressed in terms of a pressure. It is why, that's why it is Kp there. Right. See, when I write it is G, it is Gibbs free energy. When I write it is del G, it is change in Gibbs free energy. When I put a naught over del G, it is del G naught, it's called standard free energy change. So, standard free energy change can be calculated from the expression that I have written below. Right. So, for all above discussions was considered by a scientist called Ellingham. What he said is, considering the expression that was written previously, he used those relationship to calculate change in Gibbs free energy, standard Gibbs free energy change values for the reduction of various metal oxides. He actually considered those reactions are in equilibrium. I am coming again. He has considered those reactions are in equilibrium. So, he considered the relationship that we have written previously, which is del G naught is equal to minus RT ln Kp, and he was able to arrive to a relationship that he was able to plot a graph that relates the temperature which gives us the reduction of the metal oxides. Right. What he has done? We will see now. He actually considered a graph, in which temperature is taken in an x-axis. And the standard free energy change is taken in the y-axis, which means standard free energy change for the formation of various metal oxide he has taken in an y-axis. So, he has just plotted a graph in which temperature is taken in an x-axis and standard free energy change for the formation of various metal oxide is taken in y-axis. Right. So, he will be able to get various straight line in which the slope that he is going to get is taken as del S. Slope is considered as a change in entropy and the intercept is considered as a change in enthalpy, which means he was able to relate his concept by considering the previous expression that was written. So, which is del G is equal to del H minus T del S. So, he has considered this expression just like a straight line equation. So, del G is taken as a y and temperature is taken as an x. So, y is equal to C plus mx. So, he was able to plot a graph in which temperature is taken in an x-axis and standard free energy taken in an y-axis. So, this graph that actually relates the variation of standard free energy change for the formation of various metal oxide with respect to the temperature is considered as an example, Ellingham diagram. Right. See, it is a graphical representation that actually relates the standard free energy change for the formation of various metal oxide with respect to the temperature. So, this graphical representation is considered as an Ellingham diagram. So, that is what I have written here. So, you are able to see. See, this is the Ellingham diagram graph. Here, right. Here you are able to witness the graph. In the graph, it actually relates the del G naught here in y-axis and the temperature which is given in terms of an x-axis here. So, this graph is considered as an Ellingham diagram. So, it was written clearly here as the graphical representation of variation of standard Gibbs free energy change of a reaction for the formation of various metal oxide against the temperature. So, this is called Ellingham diagram. And after knowing the Ellingham diagram, we have to know what is the application part of it and what do we actually observe on looking into the Ellingham diagram. And what are all those limitations? These three collective things will be learned now, which means observation, application and limitation. To begin with, observation. The very first observation is, if you are able to see the graph which is given here, every graph you are able to get a straight line for the formation of various metal oxide. And if you find the straight line which has been given here, for most of the metal oxide that has been formed, you are able to get a straight line. Right. And if you take the slope of the straight line, you will be getting a positive slope there. You will be getting what? Positive slope. Right. If you are getting a positive slope over there, here what the point he is coming to say is, if you are able to arrive a positive slope, which means the oxygen which is existing as an ideal gas is being consumed by the metal for the formation of a metal oxide. Kindly listen. if you are able to arrive a positive slope with a straight line, there oxygen which is present as an ideal gas is consumed. If the oxygen which is present in the ideal gas is consumed, what has happened? It is actually consumed for the formation of a metal oxide, which means assume that there is a metal called copper. Copper is taking the oxygen which is present as an ideal gas and it leads to the formation of a cuprous oxide, right? Which means initially there is a lots of ideal gas, those ideal gases are consumed. Now you have to imagine the concept behind the gaseous state, which means if the gas existing as an ideal nature, gas will move anywhere randomly and capable of colliding in the walls of a container, right? If the gases can move anywhere randomly when it is an ideal state, their randomness will be higher. Initially the randomness was higher because oxygen which is present as an ideal gas as existing as a gas itself. But once the metal oxide has been formed, those oxygen which is present as an ideal gas is consumed. If the oxygen that is present as an ideal gas is consumed, randomness will decrease, which means del S, okay, randomness is actually decreases. So del S becomes negative there. So del S becomes negative there. When del S becomes negative in a straight line equation, which is del H is equals to del G is equal to del H minus T del S. If del S is negative, T del S will be positive in the straight line equation. This is what he is coming to say. If del S is negative, T del S will become positive in a straight line equation. This is his first observation. For most of the metal oxide, the slope is, you are able to get a straight line with a negative slope, positive slope. It means that oxygen which is present as an ideal gas is consumed there. So initially it is an ideal gas, so randomness is greater. When oxygen is consumed by a metal for the formation of the metal oxide, randomness decreases because oxygen which is existing as an ideal nature decreases. So del S becomes negative. If del S becomes negative in the straight line equation, T del S becomes positive, right? The next observation, see, among all the graphs that you are able to see, you are able to find a pink line here. The pink line, you are getting a straight line with the negative slope. The straight line with the negative slope, which is given in the pink line, right? The straight line with the negative slope actually talks about the fact that in order to form 2 moles of carbon monoxide, only 2 moles of carbon actually consumes 1 mole of oxygen to form 2 moles of carbon dioxide, which means the rate of consumption of an oxygen with respect to the carbon is in the ratio of 2:1. It is not in the form of 1:1. If there is 2 mole of carbon and the 2 mole of oxygen, there is nothing to deal with. But here 2 moles of carbon actually consumes 1 mole of an oxygen, which means randomness doesn't goes negative, because all the oxygen is not consumed, right? The oxygen which is existing as an ideal gas, its level decreases, but it doesn't goes to negative. Okay, so that is why here randomness is, if doesn't goes as negative, still the oxygen existing as an ideal gas as itself. If the oxygen which is left over existing as an ideal gas there itself, randomness, it is capable of exerting certain amount of randomness. If randomness is little bit higher, definitely del S will be positive. Here del S is positive behind the reason that 2 moles of carbon actually consumes only 1 mole of carbon monoxide. That is the reason. So the rate of consumption of a carbon oxygen by the carbon, here it is less. That is why del S is positive. That is why you are getting a straight line with a negative slope. Right. This also states that, see, carbon, if the carbon reacts with an oxygen and forms carbon monoxide, the carbon must have the capability to react with oxygen and form the carbon dioxide also. But if this carbon monoxide is capable of reacting with oxygen to form carbon dioxide, I would say the carbon monoxide that formed is least stable. But this reaction actually doesn't occur. Okay, because even though the carbon monoxide has been formed, there is leftover oxygen in its atmosphere there itself. Carbon monoxide can react with an oxygen and forms carbon dioxide, but that doesn't take place, which means the carbon monoxide that has been formed is quite stable even at a higher temperature. So this is what its observation. Then the next observation is, see, as the temperature increases in an x-axis, Gibbs free energy for the formation of metal oxide becomes less negative. Here it is minus 1200, okay, here it is minus 100, above it is plus 200, which means as the temperature increases, Gibbs free energy for the formation of metal oxide increases, which means it becomes less negative and becomes 0 at a particular temperature, which means Gibbs free energy for the formation of metal oxide becomes 0 at a particular temperature. Okay, that particular temperature is a point we have to keep as a reference point. At that temperature, okay, that temperature we have to consider as a reference point. Below the temperature, del G will be negative for the formation of a metal oxide, which means there below this temperature, that's what becomes 0 at a particular temperature, below this temperature Gibbs free energy will be negative. If the Gibbs free energy is negative, oxide that has been formed is quite stable. If the Gibbs free energy is positive, the oxide that formed will be less stable. Dissociation will occur. That is what its point is. See, just assume that a metal oxide reaches its standard Gibbs free energy is change 0 at a temperature of 1300 Kelvin. 1300 Kelvin or 1300 degrees Celsius, whatever it is. This is the reference temperature for that metal oxide, because above that temperature Gibbs free energy will be positive. Above that temperature Gibbs free energy will be positive. Below that temperature Gibbs free energy will be negative, which means if Gibbs free energy is negative, the oxide that has been formed is more stable. If Gibbs free energy is positive, the oxide that has been formed is less stable, that will undergo decomposition very easily, which means if the Gibbs free energy is positive, decomposition will definitely take place for the metal oxide. Don't forget it. Next one. Next observation that we could see is, we are able to find a dotted line in the upper part of the graph. That dotted line actually tells us there is a phase transition taking place, which means either solid will be changed into liquid or the solid into vapor or liquid into vapor. Such kind of a physical state transition will occur. That is why for magnesium, for mercury and silver, okay, for those all, even for the calcium it is given as a dotted line. Right, for those all, here it is, phase transition is taking place. That is why it has been mentioned as a dotted line. Where if you are able to find a dotted line in an Ellingham diagram, it means phase transition is taking place there. That's it with this observation. Now we are getting into an application. See, the most very useful part of the Ellingham diagram is, this Ellingham diagram helps us to select the proper reducing agent and the proper temperature that must be used for reduction. See, from this Ellingham diagram I am able to arrive to a proper suitable reducing agent that can reduce the metal oxide in a specified temperature. So this is very important, right? It helps us to find. Then the next application part of this is, see, it is not that all the metal oxide are stable at a particular temperature, because those stability varies from one metal oxide to another metal. From the Ellingham diagram, I am able to find the stability of a metal oxide at a particular temperature. See, what does it mean is, we'll just know with the help of an reaction. See, let me just take, this is a metal oxide. This is a metal oxide. If the metal oxide is treated with a carbon, assume that this carbon is taking that oxygen and goes as carbon dioxide, therefore I am able to separate the metal. This process is a reduction process. Okay, fine. See, if at a particular temperature the metal oxide that is placed, that I have written here, is more stable at, say, let me just take it as 1000 Kelvin itself. At 1000 Kelvin, if the metal oxide is more stable, it will not give the oxygen to the carbon, and carbon cannot take oxygen from the metal oxide. The condition here is at 1000 Kelvin if the metal oxide is more stable. Suppose at the same 1000 Kelvin, if the metal oxide is very less stable, carbon will take up the oxygen from the metal oxide and goes as carbon dioxide, which means the reduction is possible or not depends on the stability of the metal oxide at a particular temperature. This is what here it actually means. We should never forget, which means if the metal oxide is more stable, reduction is not at all possible. Reduction is not at all possible here. Thermodynamically not at all possible if the metal oxide is more stable. So reduction will not occur. If the metal used for the, or the element used for the reduction is more stable than the metal oxide, reduction will definitely occur, which results in the formation of a metal as a separate. Right. So from this I would say that the reduction of a metal oxide with the help of an element is a competition between a metal oxide and the metal and the element that has been used for reduction. We should never forget the reduction of a metal oxide to a metal with the help of an element is a competition between themselves, because the one is more stable will never give oxygen. The one which is less stable, it will just throw the oxygen just like in anything. So carbon will take up oxygen and goes as carbon dioxide, as I have written for an example. Then the next application part here is, see, we are able to find a dotted line here, and this dotted line, if you relate it against the temperature, will be around 700 Kelvin. Assume in such a way, will be around 600 to 700 Kelvin. Specifically, if I take for Ag2O and HgO, which mean the 700 Kelvin is a very least temperature when comparing the other reduction temperature. So at that very least temperature, these oxides are unstable, which mean I am able to find from the Ellingham diagram the oxide which are unstable at a lesser temperature. Right. So this is what, at the moderate temperature, silver oxide and magnesium oxides are less stable there. If they are less stable, decomposition will take place definitely, even though if we do not have any reducing agent, even though if we didn't use any reducing agent. Reducing agent use pandromo illiyo, kandipa reduction anga nadakum, because they are very least stable at the moderate temperature itself. That is why decomposition is taking place automatically. For those compounds, reducing agent is not at all required, just heating is enough. So this is what one of the application part of this, and it also tells us that whether the reduction process will take place or not, which mean thermodynamically feasible or not, nadakuma nadakada, that's what. Right. How he is able to say? You just assume, we will just take two things. Here, let me just take magnesium oxide and aluminum. Okay. Here the magnesium oxide, this is for magnesium oxide, formation of magnesium oxide, and for aluminum here, okay, this is for aluminum, let me just take it as for aluminum here. Al2O3 formation, and for MgO here it is. Here it is for MgO. See, if you compare the line which I have plotted here, at a particular temperature, this is a temperature at which I have to compare. See, till this temperature, Al2O3 lies above MgO. Okay, till this temperature, Al2O3 lies above MgO, which mean the one which is the ideology of this explanation is behind that the one which is present below can reduce anything which is present above. Here till this, okay, assume that it's 1000 Kelvin. below 1000 Kelvin, alumina line stays up, magnesium line stays down, which means the one which is present below can reduce anything which is present above. It means below 1000 Kelvin, magnesium is present below the Al2O3, so magnesium can reduce Al2O3. Okay, above that, if you say above 1000 Kelvin, Al2O3 line comes down, MgO line goes up, which means aluminum can reduce magnesium oxide. So, the overall summarizing part of this particular application is that any metal which is present below can reduce any metal oxide which is present above. So, that should be this. And see, the carbon which forms a carbon monoxide and the carbon which forms a carbon dioxide cuts most of the line, okay, which actually cuts most of the line, which means those carbon can be widely used as a reduction of a metal oxide to a metal even at a higher temperature. Okay, so this is what the point is. Since it cuts all the metal oxide, formation of all metal oxide, it can be used as a reducing agent to reduce those metal oxides. Then, see, we will just analyze a graph which actually intersects a line for the formation of a iron oxide and the carbon monoxide. See, we know that carbon monoxide line actually we are getting straight line with a negative slope. This is for carbon monoxide. And if you take the iron, okay, iron line stays in this way, FeO. Now, I have to compare here. See, this temperature I will just mark as a reference temperature where the temperature is 1000 Kelvin. So, here the carbon monoxide line stays above the iron oxide line below 1000 Kelvin. The carbon monoxide line stays above iron oxide line below 1000 Kelvin, which means below 1000 Kelvin I can never use the carbon that forms carbon monoxide to reduce the iron oxide, because carbon monoxide stays above the iron. That is why I can't use. I already mentioned that the one which is present below can reduce anything which is present above, right. So, above 1000 Kelvin, if I go beyond 1000 Kelvin, say for example 1200 Kelvin, carbon monoxide line comes below the iron oxide. At that time, the carbon that forms carbon monoxide can be used as a reducing agent to reduce iron oxide. So, that is what the point actually states, right. Thermodynamically, we need to prove with the help of calculation, right. See, first let me just take for the formation of an iron oxide, here the Gibbs free energy change is minus 350 kilojoule per mole, okay. If the carbon that forms carbon dioxide consumes 1 mole of an oxygen from iron oxide, for which the formation of a carbon monoxide, here it is minus 480 kilojoule per mole, okay. Since I am going to reduce the metal oxide, I need to reverse the first equation, so I am reversing and writing it. If I reverse and write it, this oxygen, 1 mole of an oxygen will be consumed here by the carbon to form carbon monoxide, right. Here it is minus 350, here it is plus 350. From the thermochemical equations itself very clear, which we have witnessed in class 11 in the thermodynamics, if the reaction is reversed, we should not change the magnitude of the free energy, but the sign is reversed. So, sign is reversed, right. So, as we are witnessing it for a coupled reaction, if I couple this minus 480 and plus 350 will result in minus 130 kilojoule per mole. See, here del G3 talks about the change in Gibbs free energy for the formation of a 1 mole of carbon dioxide, and I can also say that for the reduction of 2 moles of an iron oxide. In order to reduce 1 mole of an iron oxide, I need to divide it by 2, that is it. See, here it talks about the formation of 2 moles of carbon monoxide, or otherwise in order to reduce 2 moles of an iron oxide. In order to reduce 1 mole of an iron oxide, how much energy required? I have to divide it by 2. So, thereby I will be getting minus 65 kilojoule per mole of energy. So, this is what. So, when Gibbs free energy is negative, for a coupled reaction it is negative, reaction is spontaneous and feasible. So, this reaction will takes place at 1500 Kelvin. because at 1500 Kelvin, carbon line comes below, iron line goes above. That is why it is possible here. Then limitation. See, this Ellingham diagram is considered only the thermodynamic consideration. Okay. It just talks about the feasibility of the reaction, which means whether the reaction will take place or not. But it does not tell how fast the reaction will occur. It does not talk anything about the rate of the reaction. It just said this reaction will occur. This reaction will not occur. But how fast the reaction will occur is not said by the Ellingham diagram. So that is what its first limitation. Then on the parallel, whether is there any reaction that has been taking place is not at all discussed here. There are some parallel reaction which may occur, but those things are not considered here actually. And this interpretation and this relationship between Gibbs free energy change, standard Gibbs free energy change for the formation of metal oxide against the temperature is considered by considering the reaction only in the equilibrium. But all the reaction can never be expected to be in equilibrium at all the time. So these are all the limitations of Ellingham diagram, right? So in today's class, we have discussed with the thermodynamic principles of metallurgy. Very importantly, we have discussed with Ellingham diagram, its observation, application and limitation. I hope the class is very enriched for you. If it is true, just give a thumbs up for us. Kindly subscribe our channel and share with your friends. So see you in another good video in the next class. Thank you all.